Hey everybody, and welcome to Nameless Reviews. This is the first video on this channel, and let me give you a brief idea of what the channel is about. I'm a massive movie and TV show fan. I love all kinds of genres. I like to talk about movies. I'm not a professional critic. I'm not in movie production, but I am a massive fan. I have a critical eye, and this is something I really enjoy talking about. I have another YouTube channel called Nameless, which is a channel entirely dedicated to the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan and its upcoming television adaptation by Amazon. Amazon's throwing like $100 million plus for the first season of this show. I'm pumped about it. That channel has gotten moderately successful, and I wanted to have an outlet to talk about some of my other interests, so here we are. Now on this channel, I'm going to be doing movie reviews, TV show reviews, retrospectives on past movies. I'll be talking about all of the things you may or may not have known about your favorite production. My main goal here is to help solve the never-ending question of what in the hell you should watch. Who hasn't flipped on Netflix and been like flipping for an hour and you could have watched 3 movies by the time you figure out what you want to watch? I'm here to help. My goal is to help you decide what to watch, what to skip, and what you should give a shot to outside your comfort zone. To do that, if you're familiar with my other channel, I am known for doing ridiculously overdone ranking systems to rank things for top 10 lists. That's not going to be any different here, so get used to it. I'd spend time going over it, but honestly, you'll figure it out as we go. So I figured for my first review, I would do one of the movies that I love, so you guys can get a feeling of the types of movies I like and see if you like my reviews or not. So, to kick it all off, we're going to review the movie Dazed and Confused. Dazed and Confused is a film by Richard Linklater, released in 1993 and starred Jason London, Wiley Wiggins, and at the time some completely unknown actors and actresses like Ben Affleck, Matthew McConaughey, Mila Jovovich, Parker Posey, and even Renee Zellweger. Dazed and Confused is a coming-of-age comedy film that follows various groups of teenagers through their last day of school in 1976. Set in Austin, Texas, it's a movie that really doesn't fit the traditional mold of movie plot lines, with very little semblance of plot outside of kids just enjoying a last day of school and the evening that follows. Now, the movie follows a group of high school juniors as they leave their junior year of high school and move on to becoming the leaders of their school, and a group of middle schoolers who are leaving middle school to come in to become freshmen. Now, in breaking down the plot, you really can't think of this like a regular movie. It's more of just like a hangout movie. There's no major climax, no drama. In fact, when Richard Linklater set out to make Dazed and Confused, he wanted to make what he called an inverse John Hughes movie. So in his view, most coming-of-age comedies like John Hughes movies from the 80s always have some crazy dramatic thing that happens, and that's kind of what the whole plot revolves around. But in reality, when most people think of high school, it was just the hanging out, the driving around. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't constant conflict. And so what results from this movie is one that you can get totally sucked into. And he focuses much more on characters and their interactions than dealing with drama or any defined plot. Almost every single character has an arc of some sort throughout the movie. My only small criticism of the plot of Dazed and Confused is the lack of any true conclusion. I suppose that's kind of the point, but there's no real drama that the characters overcome, no resolution other than a small plot line involving commitment to a coach, which I'll leave as non-spoilery, but it really doesn't have the emotional weight of overcoming anything. So it's certainly a chill movie, but those of you who are expecting a type of major conflict or any type of resolution, you're going to be disappointed. As for the script, the movie was written by Richard Linklater himself, and I think it's quite good, actually. The movie set out to recreate just this evening of these kids hanging out in 1976, and to that degree, it totally succeeds. The characters are written in very believable and endearing ways, and I think the dialogue for the most part is very authentic. They don't really use exposition to tell the kids' backstories, so rather they let us discover who they are through the things that they say and the things that they do. There are some lines that feel kind of clunky and a bit over the top, but I think that's somewhat due to their delivery, especially with some of the younger actors. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm going to give Dazed and Confused an 8 out of 10 for plot and script. Now let's hit on the acting. Dazed and Confused serves as the first major acting job for most of the cast. There are very few people involved in the production outside of Anthony Rapp that had any experience before this movie in any major production. There are some huge A-list actors and actresses that had their start here, And for that, this movie will always be remembered. This is Matthew McConaughey's very first role ever, and the story of how he got in it is something that I'm going to tell in a future video. It's a pretty darn cool story. Ben Affleck has a role in this movie very early in his career as Fred O'Banion. Parker Posey, Mila Jovovich, Cole Hauser, and even Renee Zellweger, who has a non-speaking role in the movie, all got their start here. So what about these performances? I think among the older kids or the older actors, there are really no bad performances. Jason London is great as Pink, and the ensemble cast is also amazing. Rory Cochrane as Slater is totally iconic.
Yeah, man, that song's about that, man.
About aliens?
Yeah, man, you didn't know that? This country is founded. It was founded by people who were into aliens, man. George Washington, man, he was in a cult. And the cult was into aliens, man. You didn't know that?
But the person who steals every single scene that he is in is Matthew McConaughey as Wooderson. Wooderson is one of those iconic characters that gets quoted all the time, and I think he's the person that people most remember from the movie, despite not really having a huge part. Again, this is a story for another video, but much of his performance in the movie was completely ad-libbed, and it's incredible.
No, man, I tell you. That's what I love about these high school girls, man. I get older, they stay the same age.
Now, the acting isn't all great, though. The younger actors and actresses in the movie really struggle, in my opinion, with the delivery of their lines and kind of nonverbal acting skills. One of the primary characters in the film, Mitch Kramer, played by Wiley Wiggins, does this thing where he grabs his nose and closes his eyes. I'm not sure if he was being directed to do it, but it comes across a bit forced after the 50th time he does it in every single conversation.
Was it O'Banion?
Yeah.
God, I hate that shirt.
I know.
The performances from some of the younger actors and actresses are very obviously their first, and if not for the older characters in the movie and some of the writing, I think the movie would have been much worse because of it. And so for acting performances, I'm going to give Dazed and Confused a 6.5 out of 10. Let's talk direction and cinematography. So Richard Linklater wrote and then also directed this movie, and this film feels a whole lot like his other movies that he's done. All of his movies have a much looser structure than a traditional movie, and they focus a lot more on characters and their interactions than they do the plot. So the feel of Dazed and Confused is super consistent with his other movies like Boyhood, and his style is very, very distinctive. I'm a huge fan of the laid-back style and character focus that he brings. My only criticisms here are I wish he had told Wiley to stop doing that stupid thing with his nose. And there are a couple line deliveries from the younger actors that I think he should have changed or pushed for something to be a little bit more effective. But he was under a lot of pressure in this movie from the studio, which is a whole other story in of itself. I'll be releasing a video on the behind the scenes of this movie later, because there's certainly a lot of great stories to tell here. Now, the movie was shot in a manner that really fits the purpose of telling a character-driven story. The conversations between the characters are shot in a back-and-forth manner, which adds to that personal feel. For example, there's a scene early on in the movie when one of the incoming freshman girls is being hazed, and she's told to propose to one of the older boys, Anthony Rapp's character. Now, the shot frames her from the point of view looking up at him as an upperclassman, and he's looking down at her. Now, the small things like this give these conversations a degree of realism. So when the movie isn't focused, though, on people sitting around and talking, it's focused on sweeping shots of kids cruising around in cars, and it really adds to that overall chill feeling of the movie, just driving around listening to music. And so for direction and cinematography, I'm going to give the movie an 8 out of 10. Now, one thing I give the movie a ton of props for is recreating the feel and the atmosphere of 1976 Austin, Texas. Now, I know it wasn't that long ago when the movie was made. So this movie was made in 1993, so it was only 17 years before it. But the clothing, the cars, the look of much of the sets, it feels extremely authentic. And I think without that authenticity, a movie like this wouldn't work super well because it's focused on immersion in the characters' stories. Anything that would break that immersion, I think would hurt the movie overall, and you don't really see any of that here. So for set design and costume design, the movie's going to get an 8 out of 10 for me. So there's nothing bad about any of it. It's just there's nothing also that warrants a perfect score in my opinion. So 8 out of 10. So let's move on to what to me is probably the highlight of the movie, and that is the soundtrack. There is really no score to this movie at all, but instead they went out and put together what is one of the best movie soundtracks of all time. The movie is littered with popular rock songs from the 1970s, and the tone is set from the very beginning with Sweet Emotion by Aerosmith playing in the background as you roll in to see the kids cruising through the parking lot in the high school. The movie is literally filled with incredible music, and that music truly adds to the feel of the movie. It would not be the same movie without it. And not only that, it's beautifully edited into the shots of the movie. Dazed and Confused music gets a 10 out of 10 for putting together one of the best movie soundtracks of all time. So one of the things I look for in movies is some type of emotion or connection to the movie on a personal level. Now that can be humor, it can be sadness, but I think a truly great movie is going to forge some sort of bond with the viewer. Now with Dazed and Confused, that connection to me is primarily nostalgia. What's odd about the movie is it's set in a time well before I was born, but yet I still feel nostalgic watching it. And I think that has a lot to do with the things the characters are going through and that they're dealing with. Again, it's not crazy drama, but the feeling of responsibility of the future creeping up on you is something that I can relate to. Moving on to a new stage of life, it's one of the primary themes in the movie, and I think that's timeless. So outside of nostalgia, though, there really isn't anything that I think that the movie brings to the table in terms of emotional connection, but that nostalgia is strong. So I'm going to give the movie a 7.5 out of 10 here. Now my last category is fun and rewatchability. Is the movie something that you can watch again and again, or is once enough? The answer to that question is definitively yes to me. It's a movie that I watch at minimum twice a year, and even for this review, I watched it a couple times, and I think I could watch it again right now.
All right.
Oh, Christ.
How you doing?
It's an extremely rewatchable movie. It's funny in a realistic way. It doesn't rely on slapstick or stupid contrived circumstances for its humor. The characters are relatable, and it's a ton of fun to watch.
Say, man, you got a joint?
No, not on me, man.
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
It's a movie that I always recommend to people that haven't seen it because I know they're going to have fun with it at the very least. So for rewatchability and overall fun, I'm going to give Dazed and Confused a 10 out of 10. So guys, overall, obviously, I absolutely love this movie. It's not perfect, but it's something that I can watch again and again and enjoy. It makes me happy to watch, and it doesn't bring me down, make me depressed, and I can totally relate to the characters and their stories. I highly recommend this movie to anyone, even just to rewatch it. So for a total score, I average all of them up, and I give Dazed and Confused an 8.3 out of 10 from me. So what do you all think of Dazed and Confused? What are your rankings? I'd love to see those in the comments of the video and your overall thoughts. Please like this video if you liked it, and consider subscribing to this channel to help it grow. Of course, you can always check out my other channel. I'll have that link down there as well. This is my first video here, and so I want to continue making these. It's a lot of fun for me. Please give me some feedback in the comments also. Thanks for watching the first one, and hopefully the first of many. Until next time, y'all, peace out.